Stop crying.
Stop with the tears.
Don't cry.
Pick yourself up.
Stop with the emotions.
Don't be a pussy.
Don't let nobody disrespect you.
Be cool and be kind of a dick.
Always keep your mouth
Nobody
shut.
likes a tattletale.
Bros come before hoes.
Don't let your woman run your
You
life.
bitch.
What a fag.
Get laid. Do something.
Be a man.
Be a man.
Grow some balls.
The three most destructive words that every man receives when he's a boy is when he's told to be a man.
We've constructed an idea of masculinity in the United States that doesn't give young boys a way to feel secure in their masculinity, so we make them go prove it all the time.
Within their peer group culture, each of them is posturing based on how the other boys are posturing, and what they end up missing is what they each really want, which is just that closeness.
In good times, guys are like really close to each other, but when things get a little bit worse, you're on your own.
From middle school, I had 4 really close friends. Once I kind of went into high school, I struggle finding people I can talk to because I feel like I'm not supposed to get help.
Our kids get up every morning. They have to prepare their mask for how they're gonna walk to school. A lot of our students don't know how to take the mask off. What is it you don't let people see? Almost 90% of you have pain and anger on the back of that paper.
If you never cry, then you have all these feelings stuffed up inside of you, and then you can't get them out.
They really buy into a culture that doesn't value what we've feminized. If we're in a culture that doesn't value caring, doesn't value relationships, doesn't value empathy, you are going to have boys and girls, men and women go crazy.
I had anger issues in high school. I felt like an outcast.
I've been suspended at least once every year I was here.
We would just look for trouble and just like try to fight.
Boys are more likely to act out. They're more likely to become aggressive. Most people miss that as depression or see it as a conduct disorder or just a bad kid.
I felt like just giving up on life. You know, I actually had suicide thoughts in my head at 6th grade.
I felt alone for a long time, and I actually thought about killing myself.
Whether it's homicidal violence or suicidal violence, people resort to such desperate behavior only when they are feeling shamed and humiliated or feel they would be if they didn't prove that they were real men.
If you're told from day one, don't let nobody disrespect you, and this is the way you handle it as a man, respect is linked to violence.
If I can man up, why step down from that, you feel me?
It's like instinct.
So man up.
Man up.
Man up. Man up. Pull some fucking balls. Act like a man.
Be a man.
Be a man.
For my kids, I was gonna end this hyper-masculine narrative here.
Tell us about this manly drink of yours.
It's a margarita, mate. It's just a margarita. It doesn't have to be anything else. It's margarita. It's manly in and of itself.
All right, explain.
Explain what? It's a margarita.
What makes it manly?
The fact that it's a margarita. I mean, seriously. It's the more fruity you get, the more masculinity you get out of it.
So fruity equals masculinity.
In order to discuss the concept of masculinity, we must first define what masculinity is. However, masculinity is an extremely fluid definition and is set by social norms and cultural norms. There are 2 broad ideas commonly associated with masculinity that we will discuss specifically. The first idea we'll discuss is power. In this case, power is control over others, and control over themselves. Alcohol represents a lack of control because of its many side effects.
Alcohol, one of the most commonly used and abused drugs in the world, comes in a variety of forms and does one thing quickly and well. It changes the way you feel. But to what do we owe these feelings of release and freedom? How could the ingestion of one simple substance so drastically change not only your actions, but thoughts and perception? As alcohol enters the body and makes its way to your brain, it begins to interact with your neurons or brain cells. There are 2 main types of neurotransmitters that these neurons use to communicate or send electrical signals. Excitatory neurons use glutamate while inhibitory neurons use GABA, the yin and yang if you will. Much like the zeros and ones of a computer, these two messengers have contrasting roles. Glutamate begins a wave of excitation, while GABA not only inhibits this flow, but helps to organize and differentiate the results in your brain. And just like a computer, these signals can be combined in enormous complexity to form actions and thoughts. So how does alcohol affect these two signals? Turns out it suppresses glutamate transmission and enhances GABA transmission, so you get less excitation and more inhibition. And because glutamate sites become less effective, information flow becomes slow and only the largest signals can make it through. This means you feel less, perceive less, notice less, and remember less. In conjunction, the increased GABA hushes the excessive background noise of activity, fine-tuning and clarifying your thoughts, but to an excessive degree. This is why you may have heard that alcohol is a depressant, but inhibition of your neurons is not the same as social inhibition. Instead, it simply cleans up and removes extraneous activity by removing less significant excitation. Without normal GABA transmission, the excessive excitatory action would resemble an epileptic seizure. There would be no clarity of thought. While drunk, your GABA channels are wide opened. Combined with the lack of glutamate, you begin to think very little, but with great clarity. It's what causes the momentous attitude of a drunk, often repeating the same idea or proclamation over and over, thinking clearly about almost nothing.
The ability to resist the loss of control translates to increased masculinity. The more masculine you are, the more alcohol you're able to consume, and vice versa. Power in terms of social status also translates to alcohol. In a study submitted to the Journal of Addictive Behaviors, increased alcohol consumption was suggested as an indicator for higher social status. Michael Kimmel, the author of Guyland, a book about the progression of young men through adolescence, highlights fraternities as a prime example of young men proving their masculinities. In the context of fraternities specifically, brothers administering the hazing wish to feel power over the pledges. The brothers want to emasculate the pledges by removing their ability to control themselves. They inhibit the pledges' ability to control by giving them excessive amounts of alcohol until, in many cases, they become incapacitated. The next idea we will discuss is courage. An article by Rocco Caprero, Dean of Studies at Hobart and William Smith Colleges, discusses how and why college-age men are more susceptible to drinking. Part of the reason, Caprero says, is because risk behaviors lead to social acceptance for young men. Hank Newer, author of Wrongs of Passage, argues that alcohol is linked with risks, particularly in college. College men are subjected to continuous high-risk situations in order to gain social acceptance. These risks are a symbol of courage and are used to prove their manlyhood. Newer points out that many college rituals and traditions often mix danger and alcohol, such as drinking games and other risk behaviors. Caprera adds on to Newer, saying that alcohol in itself is a risk and serves in most cases to increase the risk of situations.
Kobe!
The ability of young men to face and overcome these risks proves their courage and thus grants them social acceptance. Additionally, in these high-risk situations, alcohol can serve to, in a way, protect young men from realizing the risks that they're taking. In Guyland, Michael Kimmel speaks about how fraternities are a group of boys leading a group of slightly more susceptible boys. Boys with fragile masculine identities are particularly susceptible to pressures of fraternities and similar organizations. When entering college, boys are looking to prove themselves as men and quote-unquote grow up. This wish to prove themselves is often what causes them to drink. Part of the reason fraternities are so dangerous is because of the fluidity of the definition of masculinity. Masculinity is defined by social norms, so by setting the social norms, boys set the rules for other boys to become men, and by extension, set their own rules. This imagined control gives the boys a sense of masculinity and perpetuates the culture of binge drinking. The boys use alcohol to torture pledges and thereby take control away from them, bolstering their control and, in turn, masculinity.
Carson was given a fifth of rum to share with the boy next to him. There was also a bottle or two of Everclear that was passed around.
It didn't have to be Carson thinking he was invincible, but other people thinking that he was.
Do you ever feel pressured by your friends or even your fraternity to drink more than you're comfortable? No, I'm always in control.
And I think it really comes down to that. The guys thought, A, we don't want to get in trouble, and B, oh, Carson's fine. Like, he'll just sleep it off and wake up in the morning. And, I mean, they were wrong.
I raised him for 18 years, and in 20 minutes, he was unresponsive.
called home, and my dad answered. He just said, "Carson is dead."